Hey everybody, I just want to say that before you, we stand as a committee members, Democratic members for public benefits reform. And we're about to go into the exec session in about an hour, and we have some things we'd like to point out before we do that. So, and this is a press avail, so we're going to try to get right to the questions that hopefully you'll have on some of the amendments. You'll have those before you, and you can take a look at those, and we'll talk more about them. But bottom line is, after proposing deep cuts to our public schools and universities, Republicans are so desperate to distract from the budget that they're now willing to play politics with essential safety net systems like FoodShare and unemployment. The cost of this implementation, we just got the numbers, and it's through the roof. And this is a pretty high roof in this building. A fiscal estimate we received just hours ago shows that this half-baked plan will cost the taxpayer $60 million. Given our budget deficit and today's disappointing revenue estimates, it's irresponsible to move forward on this. Bourne's office, Representative Bourne, sat on this estimate for a week. And we want you to take a look at the handout. You can see when the estimate was made. This is a day before the hearing. It's been nice to have this, to have a better hearing on this. Seems to me maybe someone didn't want us to have this information. And I got to say, we're disappointed as colleagues. You, the press, should be disappointed as well. And the people of Wisconsin expect and deserve better than this kind of shenanigans on what is a huge number. And I can only guess that's the reason they didn't want us to have it in a timely fashion. They're willing to waste $60 million, despite our deficit and disappointing revenue outlook, to be the food police, to get the gold standard to be a nanny state. Talk about misplaced priorities. And this hurts people in severely limiting what people can buy, this but not that. Oh no, this is better. I mean, Republicans fail to account for medically prescribed diets and limit the buying power of everyone participating in FoodShare. Republicans failed to include Wisconsin-grown and Wisconsin-made items like cranberries, turkey, red potatoes, and butter on their limited list of allowed foods, and are jeopardizing thousands of jobs in agriculture, manufacturing, and distributing. And we heard from many of these folks. This is pure politics. Make no mistake, this is pure politics, and let me tell you why. No state has ever gotten the waiver this bill seeks to limit food share purchases. None. And Republicans are banking on that because they haven't fully fleshed out the proposal. How many times in that hearing did we talk, oh, you're getting us bogged down in details and things like that, questions that needed to be asked. They did not have the facts or answers for. This bill is being rushed through in the process with little regard to critical details like a lack of existing technology to track food share purchases. They are talking about the moon landing like it was 1960. We don't have the software that they're talking about, and that's why the cost is so high and probably going to be even higher. On the other bills that we're going to be taking up today, these bills waste, again, hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, money that could be better spent on education or addiction prevention or drug treatment programs. The only hard data, again, it was a war on data at that hearing, on this data on drug testing is data that shows it's wasteful. Other states have experienced underwhelming results with similar plans. Missouri found that 0.1% screened for drugs tested positive. Less than 0.5% of folks in Tennessee who applied for public benefits flunked a drug test. And in Utah, they spent $32,000 and they got a whopping 17 people. So, you know, if this is, and we hear that we're not after people on this, but if it isn't dehumanizing and isn't demoralizing, then let's go first. Let's go because we take public money too. To say and to use a fancy rule in our House to try not to put this part of this bill, that's appalling. Let's go first. Lawmakers' paychecks come from the same taxpayers. And when we take office, we should be comfortable with taking a drug test, and it should be in the bill. It's easy to spitball this out on the sidewalk, but put it in the bill if you really mean it. I hope you had a chance to take a look at some of the amendments. We're now open for any questions you may have.
So if you're proposing that legislators take drug tests, are you also suggesting that their staff should?
That's a phenomenal question. What we want to show is those that have a vote on this go first. So that's not in the amendment that we'll put forward today. We're not asking every single public employee or every single entity that receives public dollars to do this, but for the men and women that have a vote to go first. And that's where it should start.
I'm just looking at this fiscal estimate for the first time. So it's $55.6 million for the changes to FoodShare. Right?
For the grocery part of it, for the grocers part of it. Then if you take a look, Patrick, then you see there's several million more for the administrative costs that they didn't, which is unusual to me. I've been here for a few years. They didn't give the exact number on that. So several million is something else that caught my eye, too, that was unique to this fiscal estimate.
Oh, I got you.
How much is several million? Couple hundred?
Okay, so you're thinking this thing's going to be $60 million in next time?
Well, it's not me that says it. It's their fiscal estimate. I'm sure this took a little time in the oven and probably got beaten down as best it could to come up with that number. I mean, Patrick, again, to my earlier statements, this is coming up with software that doesn't even exist yet. To come up with a 66% of a card can be spent on this and 33% on the other, we don't have that. So it wasn't a surprise to find out that this was going to go through the roof, as I mentioned. And it has. And now you're playing these, rinky-dink tricks to give it to us a couple hours before we go and actually vote on it, and you had it for a week. That's disappointing in every way. And should be to all of us, not just us standing before you, but all of us, citizens of the state, you as the press, and we as colleagues.
Do you think Representative Bourne had these figures a week ago, or only the
I know the Republicans do. Here's the way I know it works. You as the author, you get these numbers, and then you push the button to send it out. That button never got pushed. But I will say that I talked to Representative Bourne, and he talked about how the bureaucrats were the ones that had this stuff, and he apologized for it taking so long. Well, I think there's more of an explanation that's needed on this.
Do you think he got it on the 29th?
That's what it says here.
How does this section's 177 differ from last session, 110?
Well, we have a $2.2 billion deficit now. That's different right off the get-go. Where we're going to scrape up money for this, instead of our schools, instead of creating jobs, instead of fixing our roads, that's a good question to ask the author and the supporters of this legislation. So I'm going to start out with that. But there are a couple other things that they're adding other things that weren't in the other bill that you can't have that are different in this one. And also, there are different authors. This is a different legislature. Last time we talked about this bill, we talked about this being an unfinished product, that we needed to have a longer talk about giving people the money they need to buy the things that are more healthier for them. We haven't had that talk. I'm sure. But I hope that, is there any questions on any of these specific amendments we're going to make? Because that's the hope of this, is that everyone understands what we're going for here. As we present these today, we have a pretty lengthy list all told, but a lot of these are very important to garner support, hopefully, if we were to move forward on this legislation. We need to see.
Looks like you have 40 amendments here. If the amendments aren't adopted in committee, will you reintroduce them on the floor next week? The bills are scheduled to go to the floor next week.
Well, that is more people than are standing here today, and that's something we as Democrats, we meet on this, we talk about it, and we find out what happens with the votes today. That'll be information we'll take a look at, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, some other ideas maybe that folks want to share along the way. But as caucus chair, we, like I say, we talk about these things, so we'll see.
How long do you expect this hearing to go this afternoon?
I don't know. Like you said, we have 40 amendments, but we feel strongly about them, so we'll have to see on that as well.
Any signs the Republicans will pull back from this bill, given the fiscal estimate we used today to get on the
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Since we know now, by the information we have, that they just waited till the last minute, literally, to give us the fiscal estimate. So they must be somewhat concerned or embarrassed by it. So we'll see what they're thinking. See how strongly they want to blow $55 million on a failed experiment in other states and beyond. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, everybody's available to talk with you one-on-one. Thank you.